TH, my parents impressed on me the values that you work hard for what you want in life, that your word is your bond, and you do what you say and keep your promise, that you treat people with respect. They taught and showed me values and morals.
You won't believe what Prince William just did to Melania Trump at Windsor Castle. This insane moment has the entire world talking, and the royal family in complete panic mode. Palace guards were left speechless as cameras captured everything. The footage is going viral and causing absolute mayhem across social media. Royal experts are calling it the most shocking breach of protocol in history. What you're about to see will leave you absolutely stunned.
43-year-old Prince of Wales was seen graciously pulling out the chair for the US First Lady. He courteously assisted the 55-year-old as she sat down at the grand dinner table, a gesture of old-world.
The day started with all the pageantry befitting a presidential visit to one of Britain's most prestigious royal residences. Marine One touched down on the perfectly manicured grounds of Windsor Castle, carrying the American first couple to meet with King Charles III, Queen Camilla, and the Prince and Princess of Wales. The scene was set for what royal officials had planned as a demonstration of the enduring special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. Prince William and Princess Kate stood waiting in the walled garden of the castle grounds, ready to perform their diplomatic duties with the grace and protocol that has defined the British royal family for generations. The heir to the throne, dressed in his formal attire, and his wife, elegant in her diplomatic dress, represented the modern face of the monarchy as they prepared to welcome their high-profile American guests. The initial moments appeared to unfold exactly as palace officials had envisioned. The presidential helicopter landed with military precision, and the couple disembarked to handshakes and warm greetings from the Royal Welcoming Committee. Camera crews captured every angle as the four figures exchanged pleasantries on the castle lawn, with the historic fortress serving as a magnificent backdrop for this meeting of two nations. However, what seemed like a routine diplomatic encounter began to take on a different character almost immediately. Observers noted that the usual formal protocols that typically govern such encounters appeared to be somewhat relaxed. The traditional curtsying that might normally be expected when meeting senior members of the royal family did not occur, leading some royal watchers to question whether established customs were being deliberately modified for the American visitors, or if protocol had simply evolved in more informal directions. The absence of these traditional gestures sparked immediate discussion among those who follow royal protocol closely. Some commentators suggested that the more relaxed approach reflected a modernizing monarchy that was adapting its customs for contemporary diplomatic relationships. Others wondered whether specific instructions had been given to create a more casual atmosphere that might better suit American sensibilities and expectations. As the initial greetings concluded, the group made their way across the castle grounds toward the main residence, where King Charles and Queen Camilla were waiting. The walk itself became a subject of analysis, with body language experts and royal observers noting the dynamics between the various participants. The contrast between the formal British royal approach and the more informal American style became increasingly apparent as the encounter progressed. The visual spectacle of the moment was undeniable. Windsor Castle, with its nearly 1,000-year history, provided a setting of unmatched grandeur and significance. The careful positioning of security personnel, the precise timing of the arrival, and the coordination of multiple camera crews all testified to the enormous planning that had gone into ensuring every detail of the visit would proceed smoothly. Yet beneath the surface of this diplomatic theater, seeds were already being sown for what would become a much larger conversation about cultural differences, protocol expectations, and the challenges of maintaining traditional formalities in an age of instant global communication and social media scrutiny. The presence of numerous photographers and videographers meant that every gesture, every expression, and every interaction would be preserved and potentially analyzed by millions of viewers around the world. The American first couple brought their own distinctive style to the encounter. President Trump's characteristic confidence and direct approach to personal interactions was evident from the moment he stepped off the helicopter. His tendency to speak spontaneously and offer personal compliments, regardless of formal settings, would soon become a defining feature of the visit. Meanwhile, Melania Trump's fashion choices and composed demeanor attracted their own set of observations and interpretations. The royal family's preparation for this visit had involved months of planning and coordination between multiple government departments and palace officials. State visits represent some of the most complex logistical challenges in diplomatic relations, requiring perfect coordination between security services, protocol departments, catering staff, and media management teams. The stakes are always high, as these encounters serve not only as diplomatic opportunities, but also as public demonstrations of international relationships. Windsor Castle itself had been prepared to showcase the best of British hospitality and royal tradition. The historic rooms had been arranged to display artifacts representing the long history of Anglo-American relations, including documents and items that told the story of cooperation and occasional conflict between the two nations over more than 2 centuries. These carefully curated displays were intended to provide context for discussions about contemporary issues and future cooperation. The guest list for the planned state banquet had been assembled with equal care, including representatives from business, politics, technology, and cultural institutions from both countries. The seating arrangements alone had required extensive consultation between British and American officials to ensure appropriate protocol while facilitating meaningful conversations between key figures from both nations. As the afternoon progressed, the full complexity of managing such a high-profile diplomatic encounter began to emerge. Every aspect of the visit, from the timing of events to the selection of menu items for the evening banquet, had been designed to send specific messages about the relationship between the two countries and the mutual respect between their leaders and institutions. The challenge for royal officials lay in balancing multiple competing demands, maintaining the dignity and traditions of the monarchy, while accommodating the expectations and customs of American guests, creating opportunities for substantive diplomatic discussions while managing the requirements of modern media coverage, and preserving the formal nature of state occasions while allowing for the personal interactions that can strengthen international relationships. What none of the organizers could have fully anticipated was how quickly and thoroughly the age of social media would transform every moment of the visit into potential content for global discussion and debate. The carefully choreographed diplomatic ballet that had begun on the grounds of Windsor Castle was about to encounter its first significant disruption. As President Trump approached Princess Kate during the initial greeting ceremony, observers witnessed a moment that would quickly become the subject of intense analysis and debate across social media platforms and news outlets worldwide. The encounter occurred within moments of the presidential couple's arrival, as formal introductions were being made between the American visitors and their royal hosts. According to multiple reports from news organizations covering the event, President Trump extended his hand to Princess Kate and, upon shaking hands with the future queen, made a comment about her appearance that immediately caught the attention of those present and watching the live coverage. The president's words, described by various news outlets as calling Princess Kate beautiful, represented the kind of personal compliment that might be commonplace in many social settings, but takes on different significance when offered during formal diplomatic encounters. The comment was made in full view of cameras and microphones, ensuring that it would be preserved and analyzed by media outlets and royal watchers around the world. Royal protocol experts were quick to point out that while there are no strict rules preventing such personal observations during state visits, the practice represents a departure from the more formal and restrained communication style that typically characterizes these diplomatic encounters. The informality of the comment stood in marked contrast to the ceremonial nature of the occasion and the historic setting in which it occurred. Princess Kate's reaction to the compliment was notably composed, demonstrating the kind of diplomatic grace that members of the royal family are trained to display in all public interactions. Royal watchers noted that she maintained her professional demeanor throughout the encounter, continuing with the formal greeting process without appearing either flustered or particularly pleased by the personal comment. The moment did not go unnoticed by Prince William, who was standing nearby during the exchange. According to reports from royal correspondents, the Prince of Wales was observed to place what some described as a protective hand on his wife's back following the interaction. Body language experts who analyzed footage of the encounter suggested that this gesture could be interpreted in multiple ways, either as a supportive husband's natural response or as a diplomatic signal of unity between the royal couple. However, this initial moment of attention was merely a prelude to what would become the most widely discussed incident of the entire state visit. The controversy that would truly capture global attention occurred several hours later during the elaborate state banquet held in St. George's Hall, one of Windsor Castle's most magnificent ceremonial spaces. The state banquet represented the formal centerpiece of the visit, bringing together 160 carefully selected guests from both countries in a setting designed to showcase the grandeur of British royal hospitality. The guest list included prominent business leaders, politicians, and cultural figures, all gathered in a room that has hosted similar diplomatic occasions for centuries. The formal dining arrangements had been planned with meticulous attention to protocol, with seating assignments reflecting both diplomatic considerations and opportunities for meaningful conversation between key figures from both nations. As is traditional at such events, guests processed into the dining hall in a carefully predetermined order, with the most senior figures entering last. Princess Kate was assigned a seat of honor next to President Trump, a placement that reflected both her status as the future queen and the diplomatic importance of creating opportunities for substantive conversation between the American president and senior members of the royal family. The moment that would generate the most significant reaction occurred as Princess Kate prepared to take her assigned seat at the elaborately set dining table. State banquets at Windsor Castle operate according to precise protocols developed over many decades, with trained staff positioned to assist guests with various aspects of the formal dining experience, including the proper seating procedures. However, as Princess Kate approached her chair, President Trump was observed to reach over and assist with positioning her chair, a gesture that might be considered standard courtesy in many social settings, but takes on different significance in the context of formal royal protocol. The action was captured by multiple cameras covering the event, ensuring that it would be preserved for subsequent analysis and discussion. The response to this gesture was immediate and polarized. Video footage of the moment quickly spread across social media platforms, where it generated thousands of comments, shares, and reactions from users around the world. The clip was viewed hundreds of thousands of times within the first few hours of being posted, demonstrating the enormous interest in every aspect of the royal visit. Critics of the president's action argued that the gesture represented an inappropriate breach of protocol, suggesting that trained palace staff were perfectly capable of handling such responsibilities, and that presidential intervention was unnecessary and potentially disrespectful to established customs. Some commentators pointed out that royal events operate according to carefully planned procedures, with specific staff members assigned to handle various aspects of guest assistance. The reaction on social media platforms was particularly intense, with users expressing strong opinions about the appropriateness of the gesture. Many comments focused on the idea that the president had overstepped boundaries by involving himself in what they saw as palace staff responsibilities. The phrase that accompanied one of the most widely shared clips reflected this sentiment, suggesting that the presidential involvement was unwelcome and inappropriate. Supporters of the president, however, viewed the action differently, arguing that it represented basic courtesy and good manners that should be appreciated regardless of the formal setting. They suggested that helping someone with their chair is a standard gesture of politeness that transcends cultural and protocol boundaries, and that criticism of such behavior reflected an overly rigid interpretation of diplomatic etiquette. The incident also highlighted the challenges faced by public figures, whose every action is subject to immediate scrutiny and interpretation by global audiences. What might have been a simple moment of courtesy in a private setting became a subject of international debate when performed in front of cameras at one of the world's most high-profile diplomatic events. The broader implications of the moment extended beyond the immediate reaction to encompass questions about cultural differences in diplomatic interactions, the role of personal gestures in formal state occasions, and the impact of social media in amplifying and interpreting every aspect of high-profile political encounters. While President Trump's interactions with Princess Kate were generating significant attention, First Lady Melania Trump's choices and behavior during the Windsor Castle visit were simultaneously creating their own set of controversies that would prove equally captivating to observers and social media users worldwide. Her approach to royal protocol and diplomatic etiquette became subjects of intense scrutiny from the moment she stepped off Marine One onto the castle grounds. The first point of contention emerged during the initial greeting ceremony, when eagle-eyed royal watchers noticed that Melania Trump did not curtsy to King Charles III upon meeting him. This observation quickly spread across social media platforms, where users debated whether this represented a deliberate snub of royal protocol or simply reflected cultural differences in diplomatic customs. The curtsy, while not legally required, has traditionally been performed by visitors meeting senior members of the royal family as a gesture of respect for their position and the institution they represent. Royal protocol experts were quick to clarify that there is actually no legal obligation for foreign visitors to curtsy to British royalty, and that such gestures are matters of courtesy rather than requirement. However, the absence of this traditional acknowledgement still struck many observers as notable, particularly given the formal nature of the state visit and the careful attention typically paid to such ceremonial details during high-profile diplomatic encounters. The discussion around the curtsy issue was further complicated by the fact that Princess Kate also did not curtsy to King Charles during the greeting ceremony, though royal correspondents suggested this might have been because she had already met with the king and queen privately before the Trumps' arrival. This explanation, however, did little to quell the social media discussions about protocol and expectations during formal royal encounters. The second major controversy surrounding Melania Trump's behavior centered on her choice of headwear and her decision regarding when to remove it. The First Lady arrived at Windsor Castle wearing a striking wide-brimmed hat in a dark plum color that drew immediate attention from fashion watchers and protocol observers alike. The hat, described by fashion experts as umbrella-like in its coverage, created a dramatic silhouette that partially obscured her face and expressions throughout much of the outdoor portion of the visit. What became particularly controversial was Melania Trump's decision to keep the hat on while inside certain areas of Windsor Castle. Social media users, including some who identified themselves as having military backgrounds, were quick to point out that traditional etiquette generally requires the removal of hats when moving indoors, particularly in formal settings. Comments on various platforms expressed frustration with what they perceived as a basic breach of courtesy, with some users suggesting that anyone with military training would understand the importance of such protocols. The hat controversy intensified when photographs emerged showing Melania Trump still wearing the headpiece, while other female guests and members of the royal family had removed their hats upon entering indoor spaces. Critics argued that this represented either ignorance of basic etiquette or a deliberate disregard for established customs. The visual contrast between the First Lady and other attendees became a focal point for those analyzing the diplomatic and social dynamics of the visit. Fashion experts and etiquette specialists offered various interpretations of the hat choice and its continued use. Some suggested that the wide-brimmed style and dark color were intentionally selected to provide privacy and limit visibility of facial expressions, a common strategy used by public figures seeking to maintain some level of personal space during high-scrutiny events. Others argued that regardless of the motivation, basic courtesy should have dictated the hat's removal in indoor formal settings. The evening state banquet provided yet another opportunity for controversy surrounding Melania Trump's choices, this time focusing on her selection of formal wear for the prestigious dinner. The First Lady appeared in a custom Carolina Herrera gown, in what was described as a dandelion or sunflower yellow color, featuring an off-the-shoulder design with long sleeves and floor-length skirt. While the gown met the basic requirements for formal state dinner attire, several aspects of the design choice generated significant discussion among fashion observers and protocol experts. The most controversial aspect of the evening gown was its strapless, off-the-shoulder design, which left Melania Trump's shoulders fully exposed. Fashion experts noted that she was one of only a very few attendees at the dinner to choose such a revealing style, with most other female guests opting for more conservative designs that provided fuller coverage. State dinners at British royal residences traditionally call for extremely formal attire, and while there are no written dress codes for female guests, convention typically suggests more modest designs for such occasions. Adding to the fashion controversy was Melania Trump's choice of belt, a square-buckled accessory in what appeared to be a pastel pink color, though some observers debated whether it was actually pale purple. The belt became its own subject of social media discussion, with users analyzing photographs to determine its exact color and debating whether its prominent placement and contrasting color were appropriate for such a formal occasion. Fashion historians and experts weighed in on the choice, with some describing it as bold and others suggesting it was somewhat daring for the formal nature of the event. The combination of the bright yellow gown, exposed shoulders, and contrasting belt created what fashion experts described as a look that was designed to attract attention and stand out among the more traditionally dressed attendees. This interpretation aligned with observations about Melania Trump's broader approach to fashion during the visit, which seemed to alternate between seeking privacy and making bold statements. Throughout the visit, body language experts and social observers noted what they interpreted as signs of discomfort or reluctance in Melania Trump's demeanor. Her choice to wear the wide-brimmed hat that partially concealed her face was seen by some as an attempt to maintain emotional distance from the proceedings. Fashion analysts suggested that her accessories, including both the hat and oversized sunglasses worn during travel, served as what they termed armor against unwanted attention and scrutiny. The broader pattern of Melania Trump's choices during the visit created a narrative of someone who appeared to be participating in the required diplomatic functions, while simultaneously maintaining a degree of separation from the proceedings. This interpretation was supported by reports about the couple's accommodation arrangements at Windsor Castle, where sources suggested they had requested separate bedroom arrangements, continuing a pattern that had been reported during their time in the White House. The cumulative effect of these various protocol questions and fashion choices created a sustained period of social media discussion and news coverage that extended well beyond the visit itself, demonstrating how personal decisions during high-profile diplomatic events can become subjects of international commentary and debate. The digital response to the Windsor Castle state visit began almost immediately after the first images and videos from the event started circulating online. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for competing interpretations of every gesture, fashion choice, and diplomatic moment captured during the historic encounter. The speed and intensity of the online reaction demonstrated how modern technology has fundamentally transformed the way high-profile political and diplomatic events are consumed and discussed by global audiences. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms filled with commentary within minutes of key moments being broadcast or photographed. Users from around the world offered their interpretations of everything from body language to fashion choices, creating a real-time analysis that operated completely independently of traditional media coverage. The democratic nature of social media meant that anyone with internet access could participate in the discussion, leading to a cacophony of voices offering everything from expert analysis to casual observations. One of the most widely shared clips showed what many users interpreted as a moment of social tension during the formal state banquet. Video footage appeared to capture Queen Camilla attempting to engage Melania Trump in conversation during the dinner, only for the First Lady to seemingly ignore the Queen and instead turn her attention to Prince William, who was seated nearby. The brief exchange, lasting only seconds in the original footage, became the subject of extensive analysis and commentary across multiple platforms. The reaction to this perceived snub was immediate and harsh. Social media users expressed outrage at what they interpreted as deliberate rudeness toward a senior member of the royal family. Comments flooded in comparing Melania Trump's apparent dismissal of Queen Camilla to her widely reported distant behavior toward her own husband, suggesting a pattern of social coldness that extended beyond her marriage into her diplomatic interactions. However, the interpretation of this moment was not universally accepted. Other users rushed to defend the First Lady, pointing out that the camera angle made it difficult to determine exactly who Queen Camilla was addressing, and that Prince William might have been the intended recipient of her comments rather than Melania Trump. These defenders argued that the footage was being misinterpreted and that conclusions were being drawn from incomplete visual information. The debate around this dinner interaction highlighted one of the key challenges of social media commentary on public events. Short video clips, often lacking full context, become the basis for sweeping judgments about character and behavior. The viral nature of such content means that initial interpretations, regardless of their accuracy, can spread faster than more measured analysis or corrections. Another significant source of online discussion centered on reports about the sleeping arrangements requested by the Trump couple during their overnight stay at Windsor Castle. Various news outlets reported that the President and First Lady had requested separate bedroom accommodations, a detail that quickly became fodder for social media commentary about the state of their marriage and their approach to diplomatic visits. These reports about separate bedrooms were accompanied by additional details about the couple allegedly requesting that their own bed linens be shipped from the United States to Windsor Castle. Social media users seized on these details as evidence of everything from excessive demands to personal hygiene concerns, with some making jokes about the president's well-known tanning routine and its potential impact on royal linens. The bedroom arrangement story gained additional traction because it aligned with existing narratives about the Trump marriage that had been circulating in various media outlets for months. Reports suggesting that Melania Trump maintained her own living arrangements separate from the president, both in the White House and at their private residences, provided context that made the Windsor Castle accommodation request seem consistent with established patterns. Body language experts contributed their own analysis to the social media discussion, offering interpretations of various interactions captured during the visit. These experts claim to identify signs of tension, discomfort, and protective behavior in footage from different moments throughout the day. Their observations were widely shared and quoted on social media platforms, adding an additional layer of supposed scientific analysis to the public discussion. One particular moment that attracted significant attention from body language analysts involved Prince William's reaction to President Trump's compliments about Princess Kate. Experts claimed that video footage showed the prince laughing off the president's remarks while simultaneously placing a protective hand on his wife's back. This interpretation suggested that the future king was managing the situation diplomatically, while also signaling his awareness of the unusual nature of the interaction. The viral nature of these interpretations meant that they reached audiences far beyond those who might normally follow royal news or diplomatic events. Casual social media users found themselves engaged in discussions about protocol, etiquette, and international relations based on brief video clips and expert commentary shared through their networks. Fashion commentary added another dimension to the social media response. The debate over Melania Trump's hat-wearing choices spawned countless posts analyzing proper etiquette and comparing her behavior to that of other high-profile visitors to royal events. Users shared examples of how other first ladies and female political figures had handled similar situations, creating an impromptu education about diplomatic dress codes and protocol expectations. The evening gown controversy generated its own stream of social media content, with fashion enthusiasts and critics dissecting every aspect of the Carolina Herrera dress choice. The debate over the color of the belt became particularly intense, with users sharing enhanced photographs and color-corrected images in attempts to definitively determine whether the accessory was pink or purple. This seemingly minor detail became the subject of hundreds of posts and comments, demonstrating how even the smallest aspects of high-profile events can become subjects of intense public scrutiny. Memes and humorous content also proliferated across platforms, with creative users turning various moments from the visit into shareable jokes and commentary. These lighter takes on the serious diplomatic event provided relief from the more intense political discussions, while still contributing to the overall volume of content related to the visit. The international nature of the social media response meant that perspectives from users in different countries added complexity to the discussions. British users offered insights into their country's royal traditions and protocols, while American users defended or criticized their representatives based on their own cultural perspectives and political affiliations. The cumulative effect of this massive social media response was to transform what might have been a traditional diplomatic visit, covered primarily by mainstream news outlets, into a global conversation involving millions of participants. The democratic and immediate nature of social media meant that public opinion was being formed and expressed in real time, creating a feedback loop that influenced how subsequent coverage of the visit was framed and discussed. This phenomenon demonstrated the profound impact that social media has had on public diplomacy and international relations, where every gesture and choice made by public figures becomes subject to immediate global analysis and judgment. The lasting impact of the Windsor Castle state visit extended far beyond the immediate social media storm that erupted during and immediately after the event. In the days and weeks that followed, the various controversies and discussions continued to reverberate through diplomatic circles, royal watching communities, and popular culture, demonstrating how modern communication technology has fundamentally altered the way high-profile international encounters are processed and remembered by global audiences. The immediate aftermath saw traditional media outlets scrambling to analyze and contextualize the social media response that had developed parallel to their own coverage. Newspapers, television programs, and online publications found themselves in the unusual position of reporting not just on the diplomatic event itself, but on the public reaction to that event as it unfolded in real time across various platforms. This created a multi-layered narrative that encompassed both the original incidents and their interpretation by millions of online observers. Royal correspondents and diplomatic reporters were particularly challenged by the need to address questions that had emerged from social media discussions rather than from traditional journalistic investigation. The viral nature of certain moments from the visit meant that media outlets felt compelled to fact-check interpretations and provide context for interactions that might not have received significant attention in previous eras of more controlled media coverage. The chair-tucking incident, which had generated hundreds of thousands of views and comments across social platforms, became a case study in how personal gestures during formal diplomatic events are interpreted and reinterpreted through the lens of modern communication. Etiquette experts found themselves fielding questions about protocol that they might never have been asked in previous decades, when such moments would have been observed by far fewer people and discussed in much more limited circles. The broader implications for diplomatic protocol became a subject of serious discussion among those responsible for planning and executing state visits. The Windsor Castle experience demonstrated that every aspect of such events, no matter how minor or seemingly routine, could potentially become subjects of international debate and criticism. This reality forced diplomatic planners to consider not just traditional protocol requirements, but also how various choices and interactions might be perceived and interpreted by global social media audiences. The fashion controversies surrounding Melania Trump's choices provided particular challenges for future diplomatic planning. The intense scrutiny of her hat-wearing decisions and evening gown selection highlighted how clothing choices during state visits could overshadow substantive diplomatic discussions. Fashion experts noted that the level of analysis applied to every aspect of her attire was unprecedented in its detail and reach, suggesting that future first ladies and other high-profile diplomatic figures would need to consider social media reception as a primary factor in their wardrobe planning. The debate over proper etiquette and protocol that emerged from the visit had educational value that extended beyond the immediate controversy. Many social media users reported learning about royal traditions, diplomatic customs, and international etiquette through their engagement with discussions about the Trump visit. This informal education process demonstrated how viral events could serve as gateways to broader cultural and historical understanding, even when the initial engagement was driven by controversy or criticism. The international nature of the social media response provided insights into how different cultural perspectives influence the interpretation of diplomatic events. British users often brought knowledge of royal traditions and historical context that informed their commentary, while American users contributed their understanding of their country's political culture and expectations. This cross-cultural dialogue, while sometimes contentious, offered opportunities for mutual understanding and education that might not have existed in more traditional media environments. The body language analysis that proliferated across social platforms during and after the visit represented a new form of public engagement with diplomatic events. While such expert commentary had existed in traditional media, the democratization of this analysis through social media meant that multiple interpretations and perspectives were available simultaneously. This created a more complex but also more contested understanding of the interpersonal dynamics at play during high-profile encounters. The long-term impact on the individuals involved varied considerably. For the royal family, the experience reinforced the challenges of maintaining traditional dignity and protocol in an age of instant global communication and analysis. The careful balance they had maintained for decades between accessibility and formality was tested by the intensity of modern social media scrutiny. Future royal events would need to account for this new reality in their planning and execution. For the Trump administration, the visit provided both opportunities and challenges in terms of public diplomacy. While the formal aspects of the visit achieved their intended diplomatic goals, the social media controversies created additional narratives that competed with the official messaging about strengthening bilateral relationships. This highlighted the complex communication environment that modern political leaders must navigate, where informal moments can become as significant as formal statements and agreements. The professional diplomatic community drew its own lessons from the Windsor Castle experience. Career diplomats and protocol experts recognized that their traditional expertise needed to be supplemented with understanding of how their carefully planned events might be received and interpreted by global online audiences. This realization led to discussions about incorporating social media considerations into diplomatic training and event planning processes. The role of expert commentary in shaping public understanding of diplomatic events was also highlighted by the visit's aftermath. Body language experts, fashion analysts, and etiquette specialists found their observations amplified and spread far beyond their usual audiences through social media sharing. This democratization of expert analysis created both opportunities for public education and challenges related to the accuracy and context of rapidly shared interpretations. The educational impact of the controversies extended to discussions about the nature of modern diplomacy itself. The contrast between traditional ceremonial requirements and contemporary expectations for authenticity and relatability became a subject of broader conversation about how international relations should be conducted in the 21st century. These discussions touched on fundamental questions about the role of formality, tradition, and personal connection in building relationships between nations. The Windsor Castle visit ultimately became a landmark example of how diplomatic events are experienced and understood in the social media age. The transformation of carefully planned ceremonial moments into viral content demonstrated the new realities facing both political leaders and traditional institutions as they navigate an environment where every gesture is subject to immediate global analysis and judgment. The lasting impact of these discussions continues to influence how similar events are planned, executed, and understood by audiences around the world, marking a significant evolution in the intersection of diplomacy, media, and public engagement.